We'll begin tonight in the nation's capital, the Nigerian Senate to be precise. Well, the Red Chamber will next week deliberate on the new policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, which limits cash withdrawal by any individual to 100,000 naira and corporate bodies to 500,000 naira per week from January 9 next year. And the Rise News correspondent Georgina Ndukwe-Ezanyika has details of this and other stories from the Senate.
The Central Bank of Nigeria on Tuesday announced limits on cash withdrawals on individuals and organizations. According to the memo issued by CBN's Director of Banking Supervision to banks, individuals will only be allowed to withdraw 100,000 naira per week over the counter, point-of-sale machines or automated teller machines, while organizations can access only 500,000 naira per week. By this memo, Nigerians will only be able to withdraw 20,000 naira per day from the ATMs when the directive becomes effective on the 9th of January 2023. Banks have been directed to load only 200 naira notes and lower denominations into their machines. Trouble for the planned policy came when the FCT Senator Philip Aduda raised the motion during plenary, saying Nigeria's economy is not ready for such policy.
Our economy may not take this shock, and as such, Mr. President, I want to say that now that there's this, there's the issue of screening of nominees from the CBN, I just thought that I should speak about it.
We have an opportunity. The Committee on Banking will be screening deputy governors of the central bank. This is one major issue they should raise with them. Tuesday, next week, we can take a motion. By then we have done our own work. We take the motion here.
In the meantime, the Senate has also threatened 100 government-owned agencies with zero budget allocation in 2023 for not honoring invitations and queries sent by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Chairman, Senate Committee on Public Accounts in the motion complained of alleged uncooperative attitude of heads of the affected agencies to honor invitations sent to them by his committee.
In exercising our duties, we have been inviting agencies of government and accounting officers in these agencies or in the MDAs to come and let us know. Number one, the queries that have been raised from the Auditor General's reports. From 2015 to date, all the reports that have been sent to us, we have been having the problem.
If they have no defense, we shouldn't give them any money in the 2023. We cut their budget until they defend the Auditor General's queries. So please come forward and give me that list.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, described the failure of the agencies to appear before the Senate Public Account Committee as going against the Constitution and the principles of accountability and transparency of the federal government. Georgina Ndukwe-Ezanyika, Arise News.
Nigerians have been reacting to the CBN's new policy placing limits on daily and weekly withdrawals from over-the-counter or OTC, point-of-sale machines or automated teller machines. Arise correspondent Georgina Ndukwe has that, but she'll bring that to you subsequently. Yes, all right, let's bring in our guests. Musa Itopa Jimo is Director of Payment Systems, Management of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And right here in the studio with us is Haruna Bala Mustafa, Director Banking Supervision of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on News Night. Well, the question on many lips is, exactly what, why has it become necessary to come up with this, with this new policy from the Central Bank, putting a cap on individual and corporate organizations' withdrawal from OTC, just like we said in that intro. What has, made this necessary at this time? Mr. Haruna?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, dear viewers. Let me start by taking us back to 2012 when we started the cashless policy. designed to ensure, as the name implies, to reduce the amount of cash that Nigerians use for transactions. Now, fast forward to 2022, in October, we launched the new Naira notes, and recently, Mr. President formally launched it, and during the pronouncement of the redesigned Naira notes, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria clearly stated that in addition to the new Naira notes that we're going to have, this will provide a veritable opportunity for us to move forward with the implementation, the nationwide implementation of the cashless policy. Now, as you all know, currency management is a key function of the Central Bank of Nigeria as enshrined in Section 2B of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act. And when you consider a myriad of challenges that currency management has come under, you will then appreciate the strategic wisdom and the necessity of the decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria to take these far-reaching measures. Currency, as we all know, the global best practice the world over is to reissue or to redesign on the average about 8 years. For us here in Nigeria, it took the last 19 years for us to do that. And this does not bode well for the health and integrity of our financial system and economy. And so decision by the Central Bank of Nigeria is quite in line with and consistent with its strategic mandate, to manage the legal tender currency. And of course, when you also stretch that a little bit, we also seize this moment, this opportunity to also make a forward movement in the implementation of our cashless policy. The benefits are manifold, and of course, we need to embrace and seize this moment to deal with some of the existential issues and challenges that confront us as an economy and as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haruna. Well, we also have the CBN's Director of Payment Systems Management, Mr. Musa Itopa Jimo. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight. The failure rate of transactions and resolution time by financial institutions, a lot of people say is discouraging. It's still discouraging. What is the CBN doing to ensure that the financial banks or the banks are on the same page as the Apex Bank? So you have this policy which some people describe as great on paper. However, the reality on ground, the infrastructure, the internet penetration, and all of those issues were perhaps not put into consideration when you put a cap of January 9th for this policy to kick off.
I think the cashless policy is not new to Nigerians. We've been running cashless policy for quite a number of times, a number of years. And as you know, Nigerians, we have actually digitized our payment system. There are so many transactions that are now digitized. A large number of Nigerians actually do electronic transactions. And this actually started since 2012 when we launched the cashless policy. So electronic transaction and electronic form of payment is not new to Nigerians. So we recognize the fact that there are infrastructure challenges, some within our purview, some within our control, but there are some that are also not within our control. For example, telecommunication infrastructure and all of that. But we've been doing this, and you have been running the cashless policy in 7 different locations, 6 states and the FCT. Now what we're trying to do is to make it nationwide because our infrastructure has expanded to the extent that the number of agent outlets, for example, where you can do cash in and cash out, has expanded from 800 to over 1.4 million agent outlets. More banks have been opened. Only recently, we created a niche bank called the Payment Service Bank, which also add to the provision of financial services targeted at bringing the underbank into the banking system. We also license more payment service providers. We've licensed many fintechs who are also providing value-added services and all that. The agent outlets that we have today are all dispersed across the country. And so, yeah, infrastructure may fail. We put in place dispute resolution mechanism. And so what we have today is a centralized system where if there's a dispute, if transaction fails, or if there's a dispute between the buyer and the merchant or the seller of the goods, you can actually go back to your bank and lay your complaint. We've also reduced the timeline. We used to have a time where if there's a dispute in financial transaction, it takes you like 5 days to resolve. We have reduced the timeline to 24 hours if it's within your bank, and 48 hours if you are doing the transaction across 2 different banks. So we have put in all the mechanisms to ensure that Nigerian gets value for their payment services, for their financial services, and in the event that there's a failure, there's restitution, and we bring that confidence to bear in the implementation of this new cashless policy.
Right. Many say that this may be antithetical to the idea of financial inclusion. But before we get back into the questions, Nigerians have been reacting, of course, to the CBN's new policy. Let's find out what they're saying on the streets.
The new Central Bank of Nigeria's withdrawal limit has generated reaction since it was announced on Tuesday. This policy will push Nigerians to embrace the use of online payments for transactions. But most Nigerians speaking with Arise News say the policy will have a negative impact on their businesses, especially market women, men, and petty traders who are not tech-savvy.
The daily minimum, it's too low. Terribly low. I mean, some of us do transactions in quite significant amounts, right? And that just makes things terrible. Because sometimes the amounts you want to use in a day is limited by time. In other words, if it spills into the following day, your customers and other people are not going to be waiting for you.
Inhuman, it won't work. I think they are not living among us. It's like they are living in the sky. They are operating from heaven. We are operating on earth. So here, it won't work. It's not possible.
We doing business, it is very quiet for us, and it's very okay for us to be withdrawing money every time we feel like. So they should not be imposing policy on the public, which they are supposed to seek opinion from the public. So you just wake up and you rise or bring up a policy that will only favor you and you don't care about the masses. It's very, very bad.
Speaking on the impact of the new policy on individuals, some Nigerians say it will be tough to adjust as the country is a cash-dominant society.
In this our economy where most people deal in direct cash, they like to go around with cash anyway. Though one thing that is definite in life, change is a thing that most of us don't want. However, the government may have their own reasons, but for now, I think that policy is not the best. And I wish the central bank governor and the advisors of the Mr. President will have a rethink about it.
Okay, I actually run a small business that deals with sales of shoes and all those stuffs. And there are sometimes I'll need to withdraw a huge amount of money, above 20,000 naira. So with the new policy, it will actually affect my business. So
assuming an average security man in Abuja working in somebody's house, he earns about 30,000. He cannot even withdraw that 30,000 in one withdrawal. He has to go back and all of that. Come on, for goodness sake.
Some say the policy is coming at a harsh period when the Nigerian economy is not stable. They say there should have been wide consultations with Nigerians before such policy is announced.
Government at the center have their reasons. What I crave for first is that I crave their indulgence to first of all have a test run of what they are trying to do. The approach to me is a fire brigade approach.
You were not just only supposed to test run, you're supposed to sample opinions. Before policies like this are rolled out, the ideal thing is have some feelers, the pulse, just poke the pulse of people.
The new CBN policy, the truth is, it will actually checkmate money in circulation, it will reduce inflation, and it will call for accountability of finances that goes out or comes into an account.
The election is over by the corner. It's just to see how to reduce vote buying. That's my thinking. And if actually that is the target, then to some extent they are right.
One of the driving forces of the policy is the need to attain a cashless society. However, the rate of cyber attacks and online fraud are massive setbacks. Banks need to earn the trust of Nigerians in their systems enough to keep their money there. Georgina Ndukwezainka, Arise News.
Well, let's continue this conversation. Let me bring it to you, Mr. Haruna Bala Mustafa. You've heard Nigerians on the streets. They feel like they were not consulted. You do not put them into consideration, especially the SMEs, those who transact, the market women and men who transact in cash daily, the petrol station attendant who still gets that cash. What would you say? Would you say that the people have the buy-in of this policy?
Well, thank you. And as you can see, based on the footage that you just shared, I mean, the reactions to this policy is mixed. We received positive feedback, while of course there are other segments of the population that will not be happy, and for understandable reasons. But let me just assure Nigerians that this is all for you. The central bank is not unmindful of some of these sentiments expressed, but like I highlighted in my opening remarks, the central bank, consistent with its mandate to manage the currency in Nigeria, is using this opportunity to raise our payment system, to a higher level, to make it a credible, reliable, and efficient payment system. And you will agree with me that this bold policy, will be the silver bullet to address a myriad of issues, affecting, the Nigerian, economy. I would like to, refer you to the address of the central bank governor, where he, highlighted some of the benefits. Just to mention a few. I mean, if you look at the prevailing, macroeconomic challenge, sweeping across the globe, inflation at, worrisome levels, this singular action will go a long way in reining in inflation. Apart from, addressing the very, humongous cost of currency management. And of course, when you also tie that together with the existential threat that currently confronts us, I mean, I'm talking about the issue of security, it will also have a salutary impact in terms of addressing this. So I want to appeal to Nigerians to zoom out and see the big picture. This is all for you. Indeed, the Central Bank of Nigeria is a people-centered central bank. We take this as a strategy mantra to serve the Nigerian people. And if you go and follow our policy actions, our initiatives that we have, introduced and powered over the years, it's all designed, to impact, Nigerians and then improve their welfare and living conditions. So please, this is all, in the interest of our nation. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring in very quickly Musa Itopa in our offsite studio. Now, help us understand this so that Nigerians can really have a good grasp of what the Central Bank of Nigeria is trying to do. Now, take for example, if I had multiple accounts and I went to Bank A and I withdrew my limit of 20,000 naira. If I go to Bank B, will I be able to withdraw the same amount of money? Would that not make nonsense of what this policy is all about? Help us understand exactly. Is there a system that can actually flag, to indicate that, hey, this customer has withdrawn up to 20,000 from Bank A?
Yeah, thank you very much. A bank customer is an individual. And today in the banking system, every customer is identified by the bank verification number, BVN. So you are unique in the entire system, in the banking system. Every single customer is unique and can be identified. So if you have multiple accounts across multiple banks, every transaction you do in your bank accounts will be seen. So if you withdraw 20,000 naira from Bank A and you want to go and do another 20,000 naira from Bank B, the system will see that it is the same customer or the same BVN that is trying to do multiple withdrawals in excess of what is allowed for the daily withdrawal. So the system will actually detect it. And the banks are geared towards activating their system to detect this, using all the infrastructure that we have already put in place. So it's very easy to detect.
And Mr. Haruna, I mean, just for us to understand and feel the pulse of the people, you heard people say it's for some people, they didn't think about us. There's a belief that George Orwell's Animal Farm's reality is what we have.
Not all animals are equal.
Not all animals are equal. There are people who will sit, you know, and make those calls, and they get any amount of cash that they can get. So again, are you willing to assure Nigerians that this policy covers everybody, and those who circumvent the policy will be meted out or will get the back end of the stick? What is even the punishment for those who circumvent this policy? And is it for everyone? Or can the big and mighty sit in the corners of their homes, make those calls and get those cash?
So let me just say that this is one of the vexed issues Nigerians have been ventilating. But let me just say there is no special favor and no discrimination as far as this policy is concerned. And it will interest you to note that a broad segment of our population will not be impacted negatively by this policy. Based on the numbers, and I can tell you, you know, from where I sit, that we sit on a treasure trove of information and data that we get from the industry. I mean, we regulate this, you know, banking system, and based on the insights, based on our analysis, over 90% of Nigerians do transactions below 500,000, you know, naira, and also less than that also do 100,000 naira and below. So these are not phantom numbers. This is not arbitrary. This is the outcome of, you know, deep, you know, analysis that we conducted to arrive at those limits. And to your point around whether there are some, you know, sacred cows, not at all. Like we highlighted, I mean, we stated very clearly in our circular, any aiding and abetting of this policy will be severely sanctioned, and we are very resolute about that.
What are the sanctions exactly?
Well, we have a plethora of sanctions, and time and space will not permit me to. But suffice it to say that there are both regulatory sanctions and criminal sanctions as enshrined in the existing laws, you know, in the land. We have the anti-money laundering, you know, provisions. I mean, laws. We have the terrorism prevention, you know, laws. We have, you know, the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act. So that codifies, you know, all the sanctions and the, you know, the penalties that will be imposed. So, and we are working in cahoots, you know, with the relevant agencies on this policy. I mean, this is about Nigeria. If you go to Kenya, majority of Kenyans have, you know, they prefer cashless payments, and these are our continental, you know, neighbors. Why not Nigeria? So we need to really leapfrog this economy to, of course, like I mentioned, there are bound to be, you know, one or two people, I mean, some segments that will not be happy with this. We appeal for understanding. This is all about you. This is about the future of our country, especially when you consider all the threats we are
but the problem is Nigerians are saying there's not been enough public enlightenment for them to have a buy-in. But let's take a short break. When we come back, of course, we'll continue with this discussion. Stay with us. Right, we're still taking a look at the new Central Bank of Nigeria policy on cash withdrawals. And of course, we've been speaking with the Director, Payment System Management, Central Bank of Nigeria, Musa Itopa Jimo, and Director, Banking Supervision Department, CBN, Haruna Bala Mustafa. Okay, let's go back to Mr. Itopa. Let me talk about what some you know, people are saying about the legal implications of this. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian Senate is saying it will debate this, meaning it was not consulted when the central bank decided to come up with this decision. The question is, are you stripping me or are you not stripping me of control over my own money? And some experts also say that it will encourage Nigerians to actually put their monies in safe havens and, you know, therefore hurt the Nigerian economy. I wonder what you have to say about that.
I think one point that we need to make very clear to Nigerians is that CBN is not preventing you from taking your money. We never said your money is your money. If you go to a bank and you want to withdraw your money, you can withdraw your money. We only put a threshold. And there are other options by which you can take the money. It's not only cash by which you can access your money. You can access your money in cash, you can access it in electronic form. A lot of Nigerians today do electronic transactions. And like I said, we started cashless policy since 2012. And you see a lot of, we used to have a regime in this country where you practically beg a shop or a business outfit to take a POS terminal to accept payment. Today, business outlets are begging banks to come and deploy POS terminal. In fact, there are some shop outlets where when you go, they will actually designate a specific point for cash payment. Every other point is electronic payment. So there is nothing, CBN has not prevented any Nigerian from taking your money from your bank. We are only saying we want to go cashless, we want to streamline our payment system, we want to deepen financial inclusion, and we want to make our financial system very stable. So there is no question of we deny Nigerians from taking their money from the bank. You can access your money. People do transfer, they use USSD, they use POS, they use ATM, they use contactless. Many forms of payment. A lot of Nigerians with smartphones have apps by which they can make payment and use their money. So nobody has prevented any Nigeria from using their money. But we have a mandate, to redesign our currency as stated in the CBN Act Section 2B.
Concerned about those who may want to take their monies to safe havens, like some financial experts have said.
Well, I don't know what safe haven they mean. Whichever way they want to take, those who want to take their money, I guess you'll be talking about other digital form of payment. It is still digital anyway. So even if you take it, so let me come very square. Even if you take your money to cryptocurrency, which is where you think some of people may actually take their money to, it is still digital. It's not cash. Cryptocurrency is not cash. It is electronic. So everybody is going electronic. That's what we're saying. We want to have accurate data. We want to have accurate data about money supply and monetary aggregates. That's what we're doing. It is the responsibility of CBN to do all of this. So there's nothing strange in the actions that we have taken so far. But point is that we're not preventing Nigerians from having access to their money. We only want majority of the access to be in the electronic form. And that's why we have developed a payment system that is so pervasive now across the country that practically everywhere you go, electronic payment of system is what the merchants demand. If you go to some airlines, you can't even pay with cash. You have to pay electronically. So I do not think that our legislatures would find this very strange. But of course, we enter discussions with them to make them reason why we have taken this discussion with this particular step.
Mr. Itopa, I'm sure there are people who are listening to you and they're wondering, do you consider that 63% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor? There's inflation, there's poverty, data is expensive. So when you talk about smart transfers, digital economy, there are amount of Nigerians who cannot afford even the data to do all of those transactions. And they said the policy may smack of being exclusive rather than being inclusive when you also talk about the rural dwellings. But Mr. Haruna, to come to you, someone said there that, if it's in the instance of curbing election buying, vote buying, beg your pardon, then it's reasonable. And the question is there any pressure on the CBN as this policy will be kicking off few weeks after the new redesigned notes will be in circulation, hopefully, and then few weeks just before our general elections? Is there any political pressure on the Central Bank of Nigeria to have this policy kick off in January? Mr. Haruna.
Yeah, so let me just say, far from it. We are apolitical. There is no pressure from any quarters. This is in the ordinary discharge of our statutory responsibility. And like I mentioned, this is about Nigeria. This is about enhancing the efficiency of our payment system. This is about, contributing to economic growth and development. And like my colleague highlighted, it will also, tie in with our financial inclusion agenda, and which has the ordinary man as a centerpiece of that policy. So there is no pressure, and we, like my colleague also said, we want Nigerians to, reason with us. This is all about them, and I would like us to go back, 2004, 2005, when we introduced the consolidation program. Of course, it met with a lot of hues and cries. There is bound to be that pushback. But fast forward just a couple of years down the road, the global financial crisis hit. And as if the governor then was prescient, the Nigerian banking system, was, strengthened, to absorb whatever shock that will come. And today we are all beneficiaries of that bold move. this is something similar. I can assure you, 1-2 years down the road, we'll look back and say, yes, we are happy we took this decision. Of course, it is the proverbial breaking of eggs. I mean, if you want to make omelets, you have to break eggs. And we need to, make this, sacrifice for the benefit of our country. At the end of the day, it's all about the Nigerian people. It's going to enhance the efficiency of our monetary policy, like my colleague mentioned, because we are now going to have
but are you saying
data.
this has nothing to do with the upcoming elections?
At all.
In any way at all?
In any way, not at all.
All right.
We must thank you very much, both of you, for spending this time with us to explain to Nigerians what this policy is. It will benefit everybody, you say. CBN's Director of Payment Systems Management, Musa Itopa Jimo, thank you so much, as well as the CBN's Director of Banking Supervision Department, Haruna Bala Mustafa. We do appreciate you.
Thank you very much.